So here it is. I'm finally making the video on how to repair a hoverboard. When you have a malfunction motherboard, the lights will stay on but it won't be going. So this is going to show you how to replace all the parts. Here are the two gyro sensor boards. That's going to go here and here. Those are the replacements, and they've been marked with Sharpie so you know the difference between the two. And here is the replacement motherboard. It's identical to the other. Almost, actually. So, this is actually a version 2. And the difference between the version 2 and the version 3, I'm replacing it from, this one is the version 3, and I'm changing it to number 2. Namely because I couldn't find a version 3 that was cheap enough for me. And the only difference between them is number 2 does not have the Bluetooth remote capabilities. As far as I know, that's the only difference. So I don't even have the Bluetooth remote, so it doesn't matter at all. So what you're going to do is these sensor boards are going to need their screws removed. There's 4 of them on each side, and you just push it to the side and lift it out like that. And you can do that on the other side. It's really easy. Make sure you use a screwdriver that fits the screw properly, because these screws are super cheap and they can get stripped really easily, and it's going to be a hassle to try to reinstall. So these wires used to actually be running through this hole out to the other side so that it could connect to the stuff over on this way, but it shouldn't be too hard to just disconnect everything and unplug it. And actually, before you even do that, you should put tape on the port that goes to the battery outlet, just to be safe. So here's the new motherboard replacement. What you're going to do is, instead of just screwing it into the frame immediately, you're going to want to take these wires and bunch them up together with some sort of temporary tape. And you're going to want to push them through the hole until it comes out the other side. And that should be pretty easy once you put the tape on. Just thread it through. And then you take the battery port and push that in, and then start pulling on the other side so it gets pulled with it. And here it comes on the other side. And before you've tightened all these wires over here, you're going to want to, as gently as possible, lay this down into the frame over the holes, so it matches up with these holes. Now what you can do is take your screws and put them in the ports here. Once you get the first one in, all the others come a lot better. Stay. There we go. This one is easier to work with at first. So you're going to want to do that here, here, and move these wires out of the way here. What you're going to want to do with these sensor boards is probably the most important step in the whole process of repairing this. These black frames hold the sensor boards, but remember, it has to be facing this way. The wire needs to be drooping over this gap here in the black frame. If you have it this way and fix it completely and turn it on, and the white things are facing this way, you're going to have a big malfunction that's going to just ruin the entire set. I know this from experience. I did it the wrong way. So the most important step in this whole process is, when you're inserting this board, make sure the wires are drooping through this little black frame over into the motherboard. Once you have all these 4 screws put in, you're going to want to do the same thing, but in reverse, so that this board is facing this way on the other side. Just make sure that the wires should be drooping towards the motherboard. Once that is all done, you've pretty much finished with the screws and everything. So now all that needs to happen is connecting all of these jumbled up wires. You'll want to take this wire and just set it aside for now. And the first thing that's probably the easiest is these color-coded wires. Gotta shove these plastic things down so you can actually access them. This one's a little tricky. There we go. So you're going to match them color-coded. So obviously, yellow to yellow, blue to blue, and teal to teal. Now the blue and teal are pretty similar colors, so you're just going to have to look closely and make sure you got that. So put these back on. That's to prevent it from touching any other circuitry in there and causing any short circuits. Now you can just try to, as neatly as you can, set that aside without uprooting the connections there. So now what you have is a 5-prong plug, and that's going to go into this 5-prong plug, and there's only one of these, so it shouldn't be too confusing. So you put that in, and then you have this 4-prong plug, and that matches up with this one that droops off of the sensor board. So, and that's it for now. This side is done. Now what you're going to do for this side is pretty much the same thing. You're going to take this 4-prong plug and put it into this 4-prong plug. Same thing here with the 5-prong. Oh, you know what? Forgot to get rid of this temporary tape. When you're cutting it off, just make sure not to cut any of the wires. There. Alright, so now that that's a lot better, you can... Thing about when you order these, this black sleeve is always going to be way too long, so what I like to do is I like to cut into it just enough so that it exposes about an inch more, or maybe half an inch more of the wires, and it just makes them a lot easier to deal with. I'm going to push the plastic things down. The plastic things. There we go. There we go. Alright, so the green one goes into the green. The yellow one into the yellow. Blue into the blue. And put the plastic things back up. Alright, the next thing you do is you got these 2 wires here that are... They connect to the indicator lights in the middle of the board. And this one is 4-prong, so it goes onto this side. The 4-prong side. And you're just going to want to find some sort of way of here. You got to arrange these wires in a way so that when you close it all up, none of the wires get pinched and damaged. So let's just wrap this around like that. Reverse that. There. Find some way to lay these flat, probably right here or somewhere into here. We'll figure that out later on. As a matter of fact, I'll untighten this, tighten this back. Yeah, we'll be able to manage with that. And then, going to want to connect this one. Take all these wires and just run it through so it stays put. And it just barely fits right there into the 4-prong one. Right there. Another very, very important step is when you're putting the cover back on, good old Ron John, you got to make sure that the cover that has all of these wires with the plug and the button, they need to be on the side that the motherboard is, because that's where all these wires are going to attach. So when you're putting it on, you have a 2-prong and a 4-prong plug. You can ignore the 3-prong for now. In there is a 4-prong and a 2-prong socket for it to fit. Put that in. There. Okay, it's snapped in. And you're going to want to take this one, put it into the 2-prong as well. Now for this 3-prong, you're going to want to put it right next to the already plugged in one. You're going to see that there's an extra one. Well, that's because this is a 2.0 motherboard, but this is a 3.0 sensor board. They're compatible with each other, so it won't be a big deal. So you gently, making sure you're not pinching any wires. Put that on there. There we go. So now that this cover is on, you can just continue to screw all of these in. While you're screwing these in, you're going to want to do the 4 corners first, so it's just easier for all the other screws to fall into their correct places. This can get a little annoying because the plastic bends just from holding it. It doesn't bend permanently, but it just warps out of place from merely holding it. So just make sure you hear a snap on all sides and inspect every side, making sure there are no wires creeping out. Do the same with the other side and put that one plug that runs from the light into the sensor board, just like on the other side. And you should be done once you screw everything in. And it works.